Welcome to the Web3 podcast. I'm your host, Travis Rosser, and I'm so excited you're here to learn more about Web3 and how it's going to change your business. All right, welcome to the Web3 show presented by OneMint. Now, I have with me the founder of OneMint, Greg Marcilhacy. Did I say it right, Greg?
It's fine. Yes, it works.
I am so excited to do this show where we're going to get together and I'm going to be hosting the show and we're going to start talking about Web3, but we're also going to talk about this company that Greg has created that is doing some really incredible things. In fact, I found him on my journey of trying to figure out how to do an NFT collection and learning more and more about Web3. And the more I got to know him, the more I realized, man, I really want to start working with this guy and bringing his story out there. And so this is the beginning. This show is something that we're going to keep coming back to. We're going to continue to ask the question, what is Web3? We're going to talk to Greg about what he's doing with his company. And it's going to be a place where you can really learn about the future of how this is going to affect business, how it's going to affect minting, contracts, stuff I don't always understand. That's why I think I'm the perfect host, because I can ask questions, hopefully that you're maybe afraid to ask because you don't want to sound dumb. But I love asking and learning since this is so new. So cutting edge, so excited to have Greg here. Thank you, Greg, for coming on the first ever episode.
I'm excited. It's the first one. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. So, Greg, you are in this space, and here's how I'm going to start. Before you start talking about OneMint and all the cool things you've created, because you first kind of got into this space. Was it back in September? Was that when you first?
Yeah,
last year. Got in there. Okay, so we're going to start there. But before we start, I think I'm going to ask every single guest this question because it's something that's still being defined. How would you define Web3?
So to me, Web3 is very simple, is data being decentralized. When you look at it, the easiest way to look at it is when you picture every company in the world, they all have a database. And who can access that database? The company itself and no one else. Web3 is having one giant database that's accessible by everyone and everyone. So all the data is public. So to me, that's what Web3 is, public data.
I love it. And the thing I love about Greg is he has literally dug in, like he is in this space. Everything I need to ask him, he always knows the answer. And you know, with the Web3 and the minting smart contract world, it's complicated. Like it's really complicated. I first got into this journey because I saw, like everyone else the past couple of years, was NFTs and people were making NFTs. And as a business person and a marketer, I'm like, I want to make my own NFT collection. And back then I was like, okay, how do you make this unique collection? And, you know, there's things like Bored Apes and there's the Crypto Kitties. And now Gary Vee has his V Friends. And there's a lot of things out there, but there wasn't an easy way for you to take and create multiple versions of a collection. So I found that someone had made something out there. It was out on GitHub, but nobody had put code to it. And somehow through searching in YouTube, I found you. And the first thing you had created was called NFT Generator, which still exists and is probably the premier service for that in the space. Tell me the story of that. Like, how did you stumble across creating that? Like, you know, when, like we talked, you know, it was around September. So you're almost coming on a full year since you had this idea. But how did you even decide, you know, I'm going to go build this really cool little service?
Yeah. I think at the beginning you mentioned you were on your own Web3 journey. I think we all are. We're all on a journey. I think no one knows anything, and I definitely don't know anything. The way it started in like August of last year. And when you look at the Google trends for NFT, you see two spikes in 2021. You see one in April or March, and then you see one in July. And in August, I was seeing all those news, and I was curious, but how? I think I was looking at CryptoPunks, and I know there are 10,000 CryptoPunks, and I realized no one created 10,000 images one by one. There has to be some sort of coding involved. And I was like, I wonder how this works, just out of curiosity, because I had no idea. And that's how it started. I realized that there was a GitHub repository called Hashlet that does NFT generation, but
Yep.
it's hard. You need to do some coding, you need to install languages, you need to know how to use the terminal and all those things. So when I looked at that, I was like, is that the best there is? And I was like, I knew I had all the skills to build a no-code version of Hashlabs and make it even better. So that's how it started. I think I started learning about this in August, and I built the first prototype in like 2 weeks in September, and that's how it started.
Wow.
I think, yeah, I think as soon as I released it, like the day after, I had sales. I was like, what? And it didn't stop. It never stopped until today.
Yeah, it's crazy because I thought the same thing. I was like, why hasn't anybody built a tool around this? And Web3, NFTs, all this stuff is so new. It's like we're going back in time. We're almost going back to the early 2000s when it was like the first version of web and e-commerce and businesses coming online, where there's so much opportunity where you saw something that was a struggle and someone needed to create an app, and so you're like, oh, I'll just spend 2 weeks, and here you are, you know 8 months, 9 months later. Like, how many people have used the NFT generator at this point? Like, how many collections, how many mints do you have those? Like, I don't want to put you on the spot, but
I have those numbers. I'm not going to share them, but in ballparks,
yeah, yeah.
thousands of collections generated, like millions of NFTs minted. So a lot of people used NFT generator and OneMint. Yeah.
When you first got started, like, how did you spread the word? Like, how did you let people know, like, hey, I built this thing? And what was the first reactions you got from people?
So the way I did it to get first users is that I built the first prototype on my own, and I reached out to a few people on YouTube that were building or talking about NFTs on YouTube and TikTok. And I just sent a few messages. All the replies I got were, oh, this is amazing. I'll give it a try. And some of them made videos, and that's how it started. So it started like that. And the other way is organic. I just had really good domain names, and I was the first. So I've been number one in NFT generation keywords for the past year-ish, and that's been tremendously helpful to grow.
And I love this because, me coming from a software background, I love that you just created this app, this service, and now you organically, because you deliver, like, it works, it does what it's supposed to do. Like, that was how I found you. Was I was looking for the same thing. I saw that there was code that did it, and I was like, this is ridiculous. I started searching YouTube, and then you and I connected, and we kind of started this conversation to talk about this space, because I think, even though NFTs and artwork is what's happening, it's really about the smart contract, the ability to mint, the all the other applications beyond. Like, let's stay in the NFT space for now. Like, tell me about, like, what are some of the coolest things you've seen people do? Like, if we go back to, like, NFT generator, which still exists, you can find it, and
Yeah,
people are using it right now as we speak. People are minting collections, which is awesome. But tell me about some of the cool things you've seen people do with it.
yeah. So there's so many every day that I stopped looking at this point. But some of the ones I liked or recently are um, some people create art, like they create art regularly, but they use AI on top of it to create like different dimensions of the art. So it's really funky looking, but it's really different than anything else you see. Um, there are people creating like decks of cards with NFT generator, like customized decks of cards. I've seen people create dices, like random dices as NFTs. But all the cool like GIFs and animated GIFs as well are super nice, and I love looking at those.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Tell me, like, what did you do before? What were you doing before to where you had this skill set to where you just dove in? Had you done much in the smart contract or Web3 world before building this? Like,
No, zero, zero. I think the company follows my journey in Web3 and learning things and building on top of my learnings. I've been a software engineer for more than 10 years in the US. I worked at startups, and I worked at the biggest tech companies as a senior engineer, tech lead. So I built and I knew all the skills required to build those types of application. And I love learning. I love learning new things. And that's how I built the generator. That's how I then learned about blockchain. I learned about smart contract developments and all those things.
That's awesome. And it really is a journey that we're all kind of going on. Like if you're hearing this for the first time or watching this, like come with us because we're going to continue to explore this and really talk about what is the future, like what is happening, what is possible. And I think that's where we can transition to. First it was NFT generator. It was great. It was very much a startup. I don't want to say bootstrapped. I still thought it
Mhm.
was great. But just recently, you've kind of gone to another level. You've upgraded the brand. That's why this show is presented by OneMint, because Greg's company is now called OneMint. It's onemint.io. If you go on the web, you're going to find that. But tell me about the shift. Why did you decide to shift, and kind of where you're going with this stuff?
Yeah, so I think it's looking at users, customers, and what they were looking for, and looking at the journey of someone wanting to create an NFT collection. It starts with generating the art, which we mastered at this point and worked really well. But then we had to connect what was coming after that. And what's after that is uploading, like where to store the collection. Typically, people store IPFS, but it's confusing. You don't know how it works. So we took care of that for you. So we upload to IPFS for them. So zero skills needed for that either. And the third step is the smart contract, like understanding blockchains, understanding solidity and smart contract and constraints, especially working in the blockchain is super, super important and very different than traditional software development. So we built, again, smart contracts that was deployable from our application, no code required, and we took care of all the technical parts for you. So you had your own contract that you owned as the user, and we provided all the tools as well to mint. So either you wanted to put a mint button on your own website, or we provided a website that you can link your users to, and they could mint from there, and we took care of everything.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's definitely what has always attracted me with what you're building, is how you don't have to be very technically savvy, which this space has really
yep,
depended on that. I mean, people don't realize, but to really mint and to build collections, somewhere you couldn't just be a business owner or an artist. You had to have some technical person that you're usually, like spending a lot of money on. So I feel like
yep,
you're disrupting the space in such a way that new things are going to evolve, from this. And I think we're going to see other businesses, like that's what I always get excited about, is kind of the future. And we'll talk about that next, about beyond the artwork, beyond the JPEG. The JPEGs definitely are kind of the first phase of this, but we really are like at the beginning of the internet. I don't think we really
yep.
realized what was coming way back when I was like trying to use dial-up internet, what was going to come and what was going to be next. But tell me about some of the new features. I know that OneMint is doing a lot of really cool things. I mean, some of it is so new that it's barely coming out as we publish this episode. You're
Yeah.
going to be able to showcase some of just the cool stuff you're doing with minting and allowing an NFT to kind of evolve and add things. Like explain that, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I get so excited about this. I think when you looked at all the NFT collections, they're all like a static image or a GIF that's animated, but it's one image with one corresponding metadata. Whether you like what you got or you don't like it, then it's not changeable. That's it, pretty much. And when you look at the last year, 99.9% of NFT collections are like this because that's what the technology offered. There was nothing else to do. And a few months ago, I was looking at what makes our company specials, what we've learned special compared to others, and what can we bring that no one can. And the answer to that was the generation on NFTs and make NFTs dynamic.
Yeah.
And in order to make NFT dynamics, you need multiple sets of skills that my company and my team has that I think probably nobody other has, or very few people.
Yeah.
You need to make dynamic NFT possible, you need understanding of blockchain development, smart contracts. You need to have experience building software and scaling applications, which I have. And you need a really powerful NFT generator, because to make it dynamic, you need the data itself to build the image. And we have that. So
Yeah,
we're building all those pieces together to make dynamic NFT possible. And what that means is people will be able to generate their collections like they do today. But as the owner of that collection, let's say I want to add special traits for my community, I'll be able to come in the platform, create those new traits, and then the community will be able to mint those special traits and attach them to their existing NFTs. And when you do that, that information is stored called on-chain, so in the blockchain, and all the metadata will generate, the image will regenerate. So it's going to be reflected on OpenSea, all the marketplaces and all that. And I think that's so amazing. I think it's almost like NFT 2.0. I think it's going to open the door to like a new set of NFT collections. And I'm super excited to see what people are going to build with it.
Oh, it's huge. It's so disruptive. You are allowing an NFT to have even more like power. Like you can
Yes.
basically take an NFT and add something to it. Like it's perfect for the video game world. You and I've talked about this, about how, whether it's your character in the game and you add a gun and or a helmet or boots, then your NFT would be updated. And in the past, it was such a flat, once you created that, whatever it was, that was it. But now it's like, or you could have a marketplace where you could buy different things and then upgrade your NFT. I mean, the use cases are like endless. Like my mind just explodes. I have to be careful not to go off on a tangent right now, because there's so many ways you could use this, whether it was a business that you had collectibles, and if you had two of the collectibles and then you put them together and boom, now your NFT is now this new thing that didn't even exist before. There's so many things now. Is that live? Can someone actually use that inside OneMint right now? Or is that are we early talking about this, or?
We haven't publicly announced it. By the time this is live, it should.
Yeah.
It will
You
be
showed me
live.
some demos of it and it's amazing.
Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll launch our own NFT collection with OneMint, and we're opening a private beta for people to start using it and people to launch their own collection. So as soon as it's public, we'll start discussing with other projects and companies. We're already talking to a few people that are interested in the platform because they see that it's new and it's special and they want to be part of it.
What's the best way someone goes to onemint.io and they just contact you or get a hold of someone on the team and say, hey, I'm interested. I've got this video game company and we want to try this, or I've got this, trading card collection, or I think the use cases are beyond how we're thinking right now. But
I know, I think there are so many use cases we can know them because they're on
no,
the
it's
first one we
so
think about is gaming because that's the one we know and the one that makes sense. But there's going to be so many of them. So
yeah.
the way to contact us, so we'll have a new page on the website. In the menu, you look for dynamic NFTs, and there's going to be a button here to apply for the private beta. We'll ask you for information about you, what you're trying to do, and we'll reach out.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear like someone that's listening to this episode and like, hey, I contacted Greg and we created this thing. I mean, that's kind of the pace this is going, where every couple months, like things are changing so much. Like let's shift over that. Like, what do you think the future of OneMint and your company, like where do you see your guys headed? How do you want to be, seen in the space?
So what we're focused on now, short term, is opening the door to dynamic NFTs as much people as we can. So we're turning into a launchpad for dynamic NFTs. But beyond that, the market, when we look at the trading experience to trade dynamic NFTs, it doesn't really work with OpenSea or any of the existing marketplaces. So we want to build a marketplace that's focused specifically on dynamic NFTs to make, as we said, like equipments straightforward and it makes sense. All that with an amazing user experience. So we believe it deserves its own marketplace. So that's where we're gonna go.
That's awesome. This is so exciting. It's something else I want to talk about, just because the environment we're in right now, where crypto's had a little bit of a dip, and I know people are like, oh, NFTs, don't mess with that. How do you think that's affecting the big picture, or does it even matter? Like, as we're speaking right now, both Bitcoin and Ethereum are fairly low, had quite an adjustment during this past, beginning of the summer, end of spring there.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it changes the conviction about Web3 and blockchain technology to anyone. It sucks right now because all the Ethereum is down, Bitcoin is down, but it doesn't matter. If you're building today or 6 months ago, it's the same thing. And as you said at the beginning, it's still early. Everything has to be built. And that's what's amazing about this space. There's so much to do. There's so much to imagine. So I love it. I can't wait to see where we are 6 months from now and what gets built within the next 6 months.
Yeah, I know it's exciting because it's so early that people have opinions. And I think sometimes with new technology, we think about it like, oh, that's lame. Like when people first were talking about NFTs, well, I could just make a copy of that JPEG. Oh, I own it. And I heard just recently Gary Vaynerchuk had this talk that he was doing. He was like, QR codes, when QR codes first came out like 8-9 years ago, we're like, that's cool. And then we're like, whatever. But then like COVID happens, and now every time you go to a restaurant, I'm scanning a QR code to get a menu, and it's such a utilized technology. NFTs will be the same thing because of how it can be used with business, whether it's ownership of a home or tickets to a concert, or there's so many use cases that we have no idea where this is going. And sure,
Yep.
the market's dipping, but it's similar to what happened in early 2000. There was so much impact. There was so much going into, Yahoo and pets.com and everybody had a Super Bowl commercial. And then, there was a huge .com crash because of so much hype went into it. And, obviously the economies and things are dealing with a lot of stuff, but right now, but there's so much hype around stuff that is important, but it's going to change our lives forever, just like the internet did. I mean, and it's so exciting to see what you're doing and to see how you have the ability with you and your team to just build. Like, that's why I'm so drawn to you and why I'm always talking to you, because I want to hear about what are you building? What is it going to do? Because you're able to actually execute on these ideas and bring them to life. So this is really, really awesome.
I think everyone should try to get in, because it's funny, a few days ago, we were talking about this podcast and the idea of a podcast. And my brain's immediately starting to think about how can we use an NFT to make our podcast special? And a bunch of ideas came up. So whether you're listening and you're in the real estate or whatever you're doing, and try to think about how would it work with NFTs? There's something to build everywhere you think about it.
That's a good point, because I think that's what this podcast can do, is allow business owners to think, how can I use this new blockchain smart contract and NFTs in my business? Because we're on our Discord channel, we're talking back and forth about, oh, we could use an NFT for every podcast, and in the future we may actually do that. So you might be listening to us continue to brainstorm this, but I think if you're listening to this as a business owner, how would this affect your business? Like, what are ways, and we're going to be putting this on YouTube so you can make comments in there. Like, what are ways you think you might be able to do it? I know real estate, it's huge. Like, if you own a home, can you right now prove to me that you own a home? Well, if it was an NFT, I could pull it up and I could show you. I could show you like right on here. In fact, I might even be able to do the transaction digitally without a title company, without a real estate agent. I mean, can you imagine?
That's game changer.
it's an industry killer. Like
Yep.
literally, how disruptive is this technology? People are missing. I mean, not everybody, but some people are truly missing what is happening. And there's plenty of time. I mean, and I keep going back to Gary Vaynerchuk, but he's like, you got to go spend 20 or 30 hours researching it. And I think on this podcast, we can do a good job telling people what's happening, because it's things are changing fast and it is super exciting. I mean, I haven't been this excited about technology in quite a while. So
Yeah,
very,
same thing with me.
very, very cool. I know every time I talk to you, you're excited. And every time I talk to you, the project, it just keeps moving and moving. And this has been really cool. So this is our first episode. So anybody listening, thank you. Greg, thank you for sitting in here and doing this. This is kind of one of your first interviews, right?
It is my first interview. Yeah. Interrupted by my son as well. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
if you're
saw it
watching the
in the
YouTube,
background. Yeah.
if you're watching the YouTube, you would have seen it. So if you're on the podcast, go check out the YouTube, because yeah, Greg's son came in and was very cute in the corner trying to look around like what's going on. And you didn't miss a beat. I don't think anybody would have known.
Yeah.
So, awesome. Well, again, thank you for everybody listening. Spread the word about this podcast. We're going to keep doing this. Myself and Greg will be on here. Sometimes there'll be other guests that we're going to bring in, other people from the team, so we can talk more about what we're doing. And we just want to keep this conversation about Web3, NFTs, and all the cool stuff that OneMint is creating, because they are disrupting the space. They are changing things, and the future is pretty bright. So I'm awesome. I'm sorry. I'm excited. I'm so excited that I'm also awesome. Greg, thank you. This has been great. And I can't wait to do the next one.
Awesome. We'll talk soon.